Hi there. Today we have Wayfinders, and it's one of my favorite other than water groups that we're going to talk about. Isn't that perfect?
Yeah.
It's my alarm.
There you go.
Where am I at?
Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Are.
Thank you. I am.
Okay.
Yay. And we have Jeff and Randall on Wayfinders.
And today we're going to talk about emotional, body, and energy, but we're going to go on a little bit more depth into each one of those sections. And as usual, we like to start out with awareness, because we think that you have to find out where you are, what stage are you, what's happening with you, right?
Where you're at.
Where you're at, and then we're going to talk more about it later too, but your ability to respond. Once you figure out where you're at and what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent.
Get into the feelings of it. Yeah.
And then the realization that you have the ability to respond. You can change what's happening and the way you feel about what's happening, and then take some sort of action. So when we get to the end of it, we're going to give people some ideas of how to take action to change the state that they're in.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
So I would like to start out and say, in the awareness, do you have any further you want to throw in on the awareness part?
Well, I think we talk about this a lot, and it all starts, you can't start a journey unless you know where you're at and have some idea of where you want to go.
Right.
So it's just typical that you got to figure out, okay, am I in a good place? Am I in a bad place? Why am I there? How did I get here?
Yeah.
Did I put myself here? Is it because of somebody else that I've wound up here, or what? Just figure that part out, is the awareness. And then to, as you said, take responsibility and start to figure out what you're going to do about it, because you have to take action.
And you choose what path you're going to take. You know, when I was in business, we used to talk about PACE, P-A-C-E, positive attitudes change everything.
Ooh,
But
I like
you can also make a left turn and go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, because negative attitudes change everything as well.
Some people actually have some comfort with pain or with issues or with
I think
problems.
we just get used to it, kind of like concentration camps. We get used to it. We're humans. We get used to everything, and we tend to make the best of it because we have to survive in that circumstance. So I think we just get used to it.
So if I were to say a trigger, you're going through your awareness thing, and you're saying, you know what, right now, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, I'm not in a place that I want to be. I don't feel right, whatever it is. So what do I do about it? Like we had someone who said they were discombobulated.
I've heard about that.
Okay, so now you're discombobulated. You're aware of it. That's wonderful. That's a good start, right?
Right.
Now you get to choose which path you're going to take. So I say, take the pace. Think of the word pace and say positive attitudes change everything. So if I have a positive attitude about where I am right now, and I want to go in the right direction, I want to be in a better place, a better vibration, and move. A positive attitude could move you in the right direction, and a negative attitude could move you in the wrong direction.
What about someone that's very emotional? Women are especially emotional.
Yeah.
They just are. It's a part of the feminine side of us. So as a woman, I'll just say that we're more emotional than most men.
Well, but also...
That wouldn't come as a surprise to me, trust me.
But
I understand that.
My wife and I have talked about this a lot over time, that women also tend to look at the whole picture.
Yes.
Whereas men tend to break things down, into segments or
Pieces. Boxes.
Yeah, whatever.
Something they can handle. Yes.
Yeah, which is, I think, makes it easier to deal with.
I agree.
Because if you're looking at the whole thing, it's overwhelming.
Sometimes, yes.
It can.
And that's a feeling.
Yeah, and then, getting control of the situation when it's that big is a lot harder than taking control of the situation when it's small.
So I was discombobulated last week, and you guys helped me. How did you do that?
Oh, speaking of which, we found out that the sound ball that we have right here, the vibration happens to be the third eye, and it's actually tuned to a musical scale, according to my son, because he went through the whole process, that they use in India, that they don't use. It's not the American, regular A, B, C, D, E
Yes.
scale.
Okay.
It's a half tone,
Yeah.
but it's a third eye and tuning.
Nice.
And it's a one half tone off. So one of the things we did is we said, change the vibration.
Yes.
And when we talk about, you had your alarm go off, right? So your alarm goes off. You say, okay, where am I? How am I feeling? What am I? What's my mood?
Where am I at?
What's happening and whatever. So then the second thing is, if you have another trigger of something like the pace, positive attitudes change everything. Well, if I'm going to be positive and happy and moving in the right direction, what would I be doing right now? You
Yes,
better
have a friend. Have a friend.
You gotta have something that says, yeah. I mean, you talk about Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever. Everybody has a buddy system.
Yes.
They have something.
Yes.
If you don't have that, if you're a loner and you don't have that, you can have triggers or something that says that when I'm feeling this way, right, I need to open the closet door. Why? Because the closet door has an answer that's going to help me. And so even when you can't figure out what to do, right, or where you left it, where you left your good attitude, or where you left your happiness, or whatever it might be, you may have something that triggers it.
Well, it might be something as simple as going for a walk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Going outside.
doing something.
Doing something else.
Yes.
And getting away from where you're sitting and you're sitting there, being all worried about it. Take a walk. It helps free your mind up and clear your head, and you get to breathe fresh air, and you get to,
Mother Nature comes into you.
yeah, and that alone, in many cases, can help you reorient yourself to something better. Yeah, I think there are a lot of times when something may be going on within somebody that they don't really feel comfortable sharing with a friend. I mean, a good friend, you should be able to share things.
Yeah.
But there's stuff that people don't want to
You don't want
talk
to share with
about.
anyone. Absolutely.
And so, that's the sort of action that can help you turn it around yourself.
And you could have one time I was driving along and I had a brief car accident. I had the kids in the back seat. I'm taking them to school. It wasn't my fault. Someone came across, and I'm actually sitting there, and they ran into me.
Yeah,
It got me
sure.
so angry. I got out of the car, and I mean angry. So you have a trigger, right? And it puts you in this bad mood and this anger, and you're not thinking straight.
Especially when you're
whatever.
protective of your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I'm screaming at this guy, and I'm like, I won't say what I said then, but and then I went back to the car, and I opened the door and got in the back seat instead of the driver's seat. And when I got in the back seat, I said, I started laughing. It's like, how do I?
Who's going to drive now?
Well, how do I continue to pretend to be angry when I just did something so stupid?
That's a great thing. Your
But I
mind
had
got you out of it.
It's just my whole point. So
Yeah.
your mind,
Yeah.
nothing changed.
No.
But when I thought about what I just did, my mood completely, entirely changed. So you can change that.
And
I-
laughter. That's a great one.
yeah.
That's a great
And that's why
changer.
people, they know that sometimes bad things are going to happen. And you were talking earlier about people with suicide prevention and other things. A lot of times they're following a certain path, and then there's a trigger that sends them down that same path, and they go a little further, and then there's another trigger, and then they go a little further down the same bad path. But they have to this the most important thing that the human race has ever learned is that they can control what it is that they think about. They don't
Yes.
have to go down that path.
The power
But
of
sometimes
positive thinking.
something has to snap them out of it, like getting in the back seat by accident.
Yep.
Or like this. Something like that. I mean, just the sound vibration says it throws you off. And you come out with
It changes you.
It redirects you.
Yes. It redirects you. It resets you. Also, any sound does that. So humming is a wonderful thing. Like you say pace, I say humming. I'll start humming. And I can't think and have a bad emotion when I'm humming. Try it. Try it.
I agree with you. I understand.
Cool.
Maybe that's why a kazoo became so.
I like
Might be.
kazoos.
Yeah, me too.
And, you know, another thing that, as far as stress relief and everything else, juggling.
Concentration.
You can't.
And your physical.
You can't think of anything else.
Exactly.
I was taught this years ago, and the best I can do is juggle scarves because they go slow.
Scarves.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, look.
That must be beautiful.
It is colored silk scarves, but I never advanced beyond that because I guess I didn't feel the need to.
But
To
that's
pursue
a good-
that
circus or
career?
something. Yeah, I didn't want to be in the
Yeah, that's a
circus.
good place to start.
Yeah, but part of it is the first, and it was Steve Allen Jr. who taught this course that I was at, and he's a doctor down near Horseheads. But you know, the prep for it was here, take the scarf, and drop it. Nothing bad happened, did it? No, pick it up.
Yeah.
Do it again. Nothing bad happened.
Right.
So it's a way of getting your mind completely focused on this. How do we deal with the turmoil and trouble we are faced with every day? How do we find the personal strength to move our lives forward against the many headwinds that seem to conspire against us? It isn't a secret, it's simply a journey, and that's life. Our goal is to help you map out your personal path to a complete concept of who you are and want to be. The thing is, this project requires money. We can't do it without help. So we're going to reward your support with access to a variety of sources and provide discounts on programs. Go to www.communitymediaservice.com and send us $20 to make the initial friend list, or give $50 and you'll be placed on the special friend list for ongoing benefits. Help us make this happen. Help yourself, help others. Join us on this special project. Go to www.communitymediaservice.com and click your choice, either $20 or $50, and stay tuned for more.
And you can go into, responsibility is different from what tools you use.
I like this subject. I want to know about your responsibility for your emotions.
Yeah, your responsibility, after we get from awareness and we go to responsibility, you get to choose those different paths, and you can improve it. So instead of following it in the wrong direction, you can try something
instead of going
different.
down.
Yeah, and going from responsibility to tools, we were talking about, like we said, sound vibration. Maybe somebody will do a knitting or what we call displacement activities.
Yeah.
Displacement activities just puts you one step off from the thing that's sending you down the rabbit hole.
Right.
Okay, that thinking that goes into that path that drives you into that whatever. But displacement activities although it may get you off the treadmill for the moment, you still have to take a positive action to move in the right direction.
Okay, what about trauma? What about when you have a traumatic experience? What happens to you? What do you do with that trauma?
I'm presuming this is something that happens to you.
Yeah, it happens to you.
That
It's a traumatic event in your
probably
life.
really
You saw
wasn't your
something.
fault,
Probably not.
but suddenly there
Of
you
course,
are.
you're a witness to it and you're involved in it, and it just happens around you. You're in a terrorist attack, let's say.
That doesn't sound much like fun, but
No. But
I saw just yesterday or the day before the movie that's coming out at Hotel Mumbai about the terrorist attack in Mumbai 10 years ago or whatever. We happened to have been in that hotel about a month before the attack. And, while obviously our reaction was far less than anybody who had been in there, but we could relate to what had happened. And I think, it was not really what I would call a traumatic experience for us, but it sure,
didn't it feel that way though? Because you were in that hotel.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you actually were closer to the trauma.
Yeah, we could have
You could have.
been there when it happened.
Yep.
Thankfully, we weren't, so we were able to step back from that pretty easily. But somebody who had actually been there, things like that.
Or like 9/11.
Yeah.
The 9/11 traumatized all of us.
Yeah.
Really, pretty much.
Well,
All of us.
somebody would say, so how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Oh, some of the old adages. One of them says you would put it behind you. Another one says you would distance yourself from it. There are a lot of ways you can deal with it. Some people say that you'd have to confront it. Everybody deals with the trauma differently.
Right.
Okay.
In Zen, you would have to accept it for what it is, but then you either take it someplace or you don't keep it.
Some people do.
Yeah, but
We have memories, and our cells have memories.
yeah,
They're made of water.
You can't deny that.
No, you can't.
You have to, first of all, accept that this thing happened. And again, it's much like awareness. Accepting the fact that it happened and trying to more or less neutralize, I think, your emotions about that. It happened, and we were talking earlier, Brene Brown, whose book I stumbled across last weekend, she studies shame. And I think that's a loaded term, but I looked into it a little further this past week, and there are indications or stories about people who have had bad things happen. And this one TED Talk I stumbled across, again, I guess I was supposed to be looking for this stuff. This woman who had a terrible experience, and eventually she was in Japan, and again, something terrible, a confrontation, and her response was wabi-sabi, which is the Japanese acceptance of imperfections, and the fact that a thing can't be beautiful unless the beauty is balanced with age or imperfections or anything else. And I think that's something that, we as people don't want to accept our imperfections.
Yeah.
We're
our
supposed to hide
frailties,
them.
yeah.
Or
our
whatever.
sicknesses or our,
Yeah, and embracing
foibles.
the fact that we're all damaged goods.
You know how I see that relating to this? We're talking about body and health and all this
Emotions.
changing your energy and responsibility and everything else. In Full Catastrophe Living, John Kabat-Zinn was dealing with patients who had cancer or all these different, sometimes traumatic things, and he's always up for a challenge. And one day they wheeled in a guy on a stretcher into his stress reduction clinic on the stretcher, and the guy had a lot of issues, broken bones or whatever, all kind of things. And he goes over to the guy and he whispers in his ear, he said, "Can you hear me?" The guy says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, you can hear me and you're breathing, so we got two things that we can work with.
Yep.
We can
It's a start, huh?
Yep.
Everything from here
Yep.
is on the way up, right?"
I kind of do that with my students. I say, do you have a heart?
So if you come from the trauma point,
Yeah.
something happens to you,
Yeah.
okay?
You got to
Believe-
go down to basics. I know I do this with Dr. Bradley Nelson, the emotion code. It's on Netflix. I've studied it. I knew I had to go and learn it because I feel that a lot of the things come out of our emotions. Is how we feel about it. Is what we do anything, why we do anything, right?
And that's a response.
If you're passionate, yeah, you do something about your passions. You do something when you have a traumatic event. He will give a book away to anybody who has served, who has PTSD. This is a technique, a tool to release trapped emotions in the body. Sometimes, like you say, people don't want to go there. They don't want to know about it because they want to just like neutralize it, like you say, because that seems like a great idea, right?
Let's just tuck it away and
Hiding it sometimes can make it fester, too.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I would say that would be dangerous.
I think it's more dangerous to do that than it is to somehow deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it. Get into it. Get the feelings about it. And I don't know, I used to have this technique where I would write things, I would write all the things that would happen to me. And I had the guidance to write about it, read it to myself twice, and then burn it. Usually by the second time I'm reading it, I'm saying, oh, Heather, that's ridiculous, you know? But at the beginning, I was really righteous about my emotions and where I was at. And then at the end, it's like, all right, kind of like you got in the back seat, you know, and it changes the whole thing.
Well, for a long time, I haven't done it lately, but for a lot of years, especially when our kids were growing up, for New Year's, we would do a Yule log. And part of that was writing down something that you wanted to let go of.
How
that
beautiful.
had happened this past year. You write it on a ribbon, tie the ribbon around the log, and burn the log. You know, you just have the Yule log. And that was part of the purpose of the Yule log.
Yeah.
And so you can get a fresh start. And I think the good thing about that is it helped them learn that you can let stuff go.
Yeah.
You know?
Like the burden basket. The
Yeah,
Native
exactly.
Americans have a burden basket.
Yeah.
And that's one, you know, in China, back in ancient times, they would take things like make it into a paper bird or whatever, and then they would burn it, and it would go up, and
Yeah.
that's
Whatever mechanism works for you is...
That's a way of releasing it. That's kind of what we're talking about. How do you release it? Okay, so you have the trauma, you
Yeah.
have the issue. It's great. It's working on you, and maybe not in a good way.
So
how do you release
your
it?
mind kind of repeats it over and over again. That's where I find that cycle of the mind, that
You
broken
have
record.
that tape that you.
The tape running,
But
yeah.
the thing is,
Yeah.
you made that tape.
Exactly.
You could change that tape.
Yes.
You could flip it over.
We can change it.
You can do that, and there are ways to do it. So that gets us up to the final part, where we're talking about having a plan, you know, your self-care plan, and you know, just what we did here. When her alarm went off, she says, "Okay, where am I? How am I feeling? What direction am I
But
going in?"
the important thing, I think, is for people to have a plan before,
Yes, that's really important.
you know, if you're
Really
trying to
important.
come up with a plan when you're, you know, cast adrift in the middle of the
Nope.
ocean, and your plan is to stay afloat and not get eaten by a shark, you know, that's probably not a good place to be making up plans.
Yes.
So, you know, to have some idea
Yeah.
ahead of
Beforehand.
time. Yes.
Beforehand, yeah.
Which-
And sometimes you may have to remedy or escape from the situation because it might be dangerous or whatever, or something like that where the trauma happened. You know, there could be, you need to look at the reasons, like how did this, or why did
And
this
our
happen?
intuitiveness tells us that too, about the fight or flight.
And then you got to look at that once you're away from the immediate danger situation, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, like, for example, this past week, 2 of the Parkland survivors committed suicide.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
And I haven't heard a lot of detail about it, but I would imagine that a lot of that is the burden of having survived when a friend of yours didn't. And how do you cope with something like that? I think that, you know, usually there's an initial response and, you know, try to get people feeling and understanding and getting through that initial
Counsel,
reaction.
yeah.
But then that support goes away and you're on your own again. And that's a bad place to be. And then, you know, if you start
And this is why I
feeling-
love emotion code. It's a very easy technique. Anybody can do it. It's very easy. It's a chart. It's got a chart. It's
Well,
a tool.
We need to share that with people.
Yeah.
However-
Go watch Emotion Code on Netflix, I think it is.
Okay.
And then call us. Come on in. I'll point you in the right direction. I'll even do the emotion code on you.
Hey, well,
Yeah,
I'm going to have to
absolutely.
go watch that because I have not done that.
It's a really brilliant technique. It's brilliant.
Okay.
It's like talk therapy without the talk.
Good.
But you really ought to have, everyone ought to think about having a plan for
Yes.
themselves. All right?
Self-care plan.
Yeah.
Getting
When you're feeling down, what are you going to do? Especially if you know, you're in a tough situation to begin with, maybe your life situation is challenging to begin with, you know, sometimes being able to see the light it is just the first step, that you think it's all black out there.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you said it yourself, going outside
yeah.
is a great tool. Taking a bath, great tool.
So here's an
Plumbing,
example of
great
something.
tool.
Yeah, we're talking about really
Finish.
in the emotional part, and emotional self-help, and you know, however you want to talk about. You know, there are, as we already said, you can decide to change your path and change your direction.
Intentional.
Yes.
Right. And when you're dealing with a trauma, you know how you can deal with that and all the rest. But when it comes to having a sort of a plan to dealing with it on a regular basis, you know, no mountain is too high. No prison leaves you with no way out. There is a way out of every prison. There is also an answer pretty much to every question, meaning,
It's always included.
well,
The solution is always included in the problem.
desperation always happens, whether it's violence, whether it's, it always happens when people don't see another way out.
Yes.
And it might be as simple as being quiet.
Yes.
I mean, I remember the Bob Dylan song about Hurricane, the guy that was accused of committing a crime that he didn't commit. And the line in the song is something to the effect that he sits in a 6-foot cell, Buddha sits in a 6-foot cell.
Yes.
That he wouldn't hate those people. He knew he hadn't done it. He knew he got screwed. But hating
Wasn't going to
was
fix
not
it.
the solution.
Right.
And eventually he did get out and he was cleared. But, you know, the quiet, sometimes you just gotta listen
Yeah.
to the universe.
Yeah.
So our
We-
message for today really
2 ears, 1 mouth.
is there always a way out. There's always something you can do. You have the ability to control your own destiny in that regard.
Yes.
And no matter what the trauma is or whatever, it should never be an act of desperation. You should know that there is always a way.
There's always a way out. A
And
way
with that,
out.
they can go to our website, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Go to sac.tv and they
Yep.
can see some more of these videos
Yeah,
and they can
and
get
we'll
some
have
links.
some information up there about the code and everything.
And all
else,
of the
and
things we've talked about. Yeah. Thank
So-
you for being with us today.
We'll see you next time.